Well, good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Oh, you guys sounded a little too quiet. Good afternoon, everyone. That's what I'm talking about. It is such an honor to be here with all of you today. As you might know, I'm Victoria Woodard's mayor of Tacoma, Washington, and the current chair of the Women's Mayors Leadership Alliance of the United States Conference of Mayors. Thank you. I am delighted to be here with all of you in Columbus, Ohio, at the 91st annual meeting of USCM. I would like to quickly begin first by asking all women mayors in the room to please stand and be recognized. Ladies, please stand up. Woo! That's right, girls run the world. I just want to thank all of you for your leadership. Having been a part of this organization since I was elected mayor, it's just been truly amazing to see how every year when we ask women mayors to stand, how that number just continues to grow and grow. And what I want to say is I look so forward to working with all of you as we continue to advance the mission of the Women's Mayors Leadership Alliance of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. And that mission is to increase the number of women mayors in the conference leadership, and the active participation of all current female mayors is crucial to the success of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. All women mayors, I want to remind you to please stay in your seats after the conclusion of the panel. I know it's easy to want to run out real quickly, but we want to make sure, number one, that we're going to be holding elections at the end for our alliance officers to work on the official programming of the mayors. And then, as always, every year at the end of our session, we take a picture together, and I want to please make sure that we do that again. Now, before I take a moment to recognize somebody in the audience, I do want to take the time to embarrass somebody who's backstage. And our teleprompter, whose name is Christian, today is his birthday, so can we all wish Christian a happy birthday? Happy birthday, Christian. He's probably backstage mortified right now that we wished him a happy birthday. But, you know, who would want to be in this room on a day like today, as chilly as it is in here, running the teleprompter instead of being outside in that warm weather where we're going to head when this is done? But he took the time to be here today, and I just want to take that moment to acknowledge him. Now, it is really my honor and pleasure to recognize someone who is joining us today in the audience. You all have seen her around this conference and other conferences for quite some time. She's a huge advocate for mayors, and I am so excited to introduce her today to all of you in her new role. Stephanie Mass-Sykes is the Special Assistant to the President and Senior Advisor for Mayors at the White House. Can we give Stephanie, please stand. We are so lucky to have Stephanie supporting us. In her current role, she serves as the primary liaison between mayors and the White House. Her previous position included Senior Advisor of the Department of Commerce and Director of Intergovernmental Affairs for the Infrastructure Implementation. She also served as the founding executive director and general counsel of the African American Mayors Association for over 6 years. Stephanie, thank you so much for being here today, and we look forward to partnering with you to tackle the big issues facing our city. Can we please give her another round of applause? Now, let me turn to our first speaker. Talent is in high demand, but unfortunately also in short supply. Many employers are looking to unleash the potential of the new talent that may not have the experience or credentials they need. Michelle Rhee founded the company Build Within to help solve this problem and assist employers in managing technical apprenticeships with new-collar workers. Michelle has founded and serves as the CEO of 2 nonprofit organizations, education reform organization Students First and the New Teacher Project, which focuses on preparing teachers to work in urban schools. She also served as chancellor of DC Public Schools from 2007 through 2010. She gained national prominence as an educator and an advancer and an advocate for education reform, and she is now blazing a new trail in workforce development. We look forward to learning more about this modern talent solution, which has the potential to be a game changer for the way we train tech talent and about what that means for all of the nation's mayors. Michelle, thank you so much for being with us here today, and please join me in welcoming Michelle to the stage. Look, I'm looking for you to come from across the other side.
Thank you. Give it up for Mayor Woodard. She's amazing, amazing energy. All right, I'm gonna start with one encouragement and one story. So very quickly on the encouragement front. I'm not sure if you know or not, but my husband used to be the mayor of Sacramento and used to be the head of the U.S. Conference of Mayors. So I used to come to these conferences all of the time. I haven't been here in a number of years, but we came in yesterday and we saw people like Michael Nutter walking around, and he's, doesn't have a tie on, right? His shirt is unbuttoned. He's got great little loafers and new glasses. We saw Mitch Landrieu, and he's skipping around looking like he doesn't have a worry in the world. Stephanie Rawlings Blake, her hair looks great. He has a full set of glamour eyelashes. And let me just tell you that 8 years ago, that's not how these folks were looking. They were looking rough. They were looking tired, they were looking overworked, and so this is all to say, mayors, that there is a light after mayorship. You have a much lighter and sort of happy and more joyful life. So that was my quick encouragement, is that you just have to push through. My second is a quick story. So in our pursuit, after my husband's mayorship, to get light and happy and joyful, we decided to rent an apartment in downtown LA. And so we are in this big fancy apartment building. And we noticed very quickly, after we moved in, that we were the oldest people in this apartment building by like ×2, right? So there's a bunch of 20-year-olds running around, and there's us. And so we kept wondering to ourselves, like, what do all of these folks do? Like, we can barely afford to be in this apartment building. What are these folks doing that they can afford to be here? And so I sent my husband off to figure this out. And so every time he would get on the elevator with anyone, he would ask these folks, like, so what do you do for a living? And as it turns out, these young people are in everything from crypto trading to content creation to cannabis and gaming. Right? These are all careers that these folks did not go to school for. In fact, probably when they said they were going to do it, their parents were like, absolutely not. Can you make a living doing that, right? So the world is changing so much. And the days of you're going to go to school for 16 years and learn, and then you're going to enter into a career where you do, those days are over. Right? It's just not the paradigm that we're in anymore. We have to have a much more sort of fluid and flexible way that we are training the workforce of tomorrow. And so let me talk a little bit about why this has a specific impact on women. And by the way, my company is female founded. Both of us are women of color. But the reality is that we have 11 million jobs or so every year that go unfilled because employers are saying they can't find the talent, the skilled workforce that they need to fill those roles. And yet at the same time, we have about 10 million and underemployed people, many of whom would love to move into those roles, but they don't feel like they have the knowledge, the skills, or the resources to do so, right? And so the question is, like, how can we begin to bridge that divide? And what we think is that you just sort of need this massive paradigm shift. You need to move away from what we call the paper ceiling, right? And move people from thinking about credentials and move more into potential. We think a great way to do this is through apprenticeships. So an apprenticeship, typically when people hear the word apprentice, they think of the olden days, the glass blowers and the blacksmiths, that sort of thing. And in this country, in particular, they have been more focused on trades and construction. But recently, there has been a movement to grow apprenticeships into the areas of technology, tech-adjacent jobs, more and more hospitality, advanced manufacturing, et cetera. But the problem, or the reason why apprenticeships are such an interesting option for folks, but in particular women, is because when women think about moving into a new career or a new sector, right, they oftentimes are looking at those jobs and thinking, I don't have the expertise to move into that job. I don't have the knowledge, right? And probably if I were to do that, I would have to go back and get a 4-year degree or a 2-year master's, or at the very least, a 3 to 4 month boot camp, right? The vast majority of job seekers do not have the ability to take a gap in income, right? They have to pay the bills tomorrow. And so they don't see that route as sort of accessible to them. That's why apprenticeships make so much sense, because in the apprenticeship model, you have a job, a full-time job with full benefits from day one, right? And you are learning on the job. So that's why apprenticeships have so much potential. It's great for the job seeker in that way, but it's equally good for employers, because for employers, they can access a great new pool of diverse talent. They can open up and unlock a tremendous amount of incentives, government incentives. Most employers do not know that there are wage reimbursements, tax breaks, training and equipment stipends available to employers who are starting and managing apprenticeship programs. So there's tons of upside for employers. And what's interesting is that most people, when you talk to them about apprenticeships, they'll say, oh yes, we love apprenticeships. But the question is, given the broad-based support that exists, why haven't more employers started apprenticeship programs? And the reality is that there are two main challenges. First, it is very difficult to get an apprenticeship program up and running. So in order to have an apprenticeship program approved and registered, a company has to pull together the standards, the work processes, the curricula. You have to turn that into the government. You have to get approved. It's a very time-consuming and cumbersome process that most employers don't have the wherewithal to take on. And then after that, the compliance and reporting aspects are incredibly difficult. So we actually address that issue. We are an approved national program sponsor with the Department of Labor, which means that we can work in all 50 states across the country. We have 13 tech and tech-adjacent roles that are approved right now. We have 2 more that are in the works, several more in development. So essentially what that means is that any employer who wants to start a registered apprenticeship program, all they need to do is fill out 2 forms with us, and within hours can have an apprenticeship program up and running. The second issue that is faced is that most employers say that there's a lot of pushback from line managers, right? These are people who are busy every day. They feel like, I don't know how to tackle this and teach somebody the new role. And we do that through our apprenticeship management platform, and we quickly accelerate the productivity of new workers. One of the things that our jurisdictional clients like the most about utilizing the platform is that it allows you to really keep track of all of the apprenticeship programs that are happening in your particular city, knowing which employers are utilizing them, in what roles, how many people. Also, we have GIS mapping capabilities. So in this case, in Washington, D.C., they really wanted to focus the recruitment of their apprentices on the places in the city where there were the highest levels of unemployment and the lowest levels of income. And so if you look at this GIS mapping overlay, this is a heat map, and we specifically recruited from the red parts of town. And what you can do through this GIS mapping is you can see where all of the applicants are, against where the employers are. And then you can match them to make sure that you are minimizing the distance that folks have to travel, because transportation is often a big issue in terms of new workers and their success on the job. And last is this, which I think is very interesting to a lot of our jurisdictional clients who are telling us that they put millions, if not billions of dollars into workforce development every year, and they have very little in terms of outcome data, right? So we're investing all this money, what are we getting? Through our platform, you can actually track the social mobility of apprentices. So you can say, here's what the apprentice's income was before they entered into the apprenticeship, during the apprenticeship, 2 years after the apprenticeship. In this particular report, we were looking at 3 roles: software developer, hardware developers, and technical managers. And you could see in those roles that the average income level pre-apprenticeship went from $27,000 to, during their apprenticeship, at $46,000 to post-apprenticeship at $62K. And so you can also cut the data by race, by gender. In this case, we cut it by gender. And what the jurisdictions are able to do then is see, like, hey, everyone tends to be moving up when they participate in apprenticeships, which is great. But if the women, for example, are still falling at the bottom of those bands, then we know we have a pay equity issue, and we've got to follow up and hold employers accountable. But now you have the data with which to do that. So the bottom line is that we believe that women can be at the forefront of the skills revolution that is happening. And now cities have available to them the sort of infrastructure, the technology, and the data to be able to ensure that that is happening. So we are super excited about our work with cities and encourage more of you to really embrace the apprenticeship model and want to be as helpful as we can in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle, for being here and for the great work you're doing to upskill today's workforce. It is now my pleasure to introduce our panel on resilient women, overcoming adversity and challenges while still in the public eye. The particular qualities of women's leadership take on a new significance and a new power in today's world. The strengths that women possess and the behaviors that set them apart will lead the nation forward in the coming years. Collaboration, conviction, inclusiveness, creativity, and mentorship. While women continue to push to reach the top, we consistently face challenges that prohibit us from achieving leadership goals. The panel today will focus on the challenges women face in leadership, in their leadership positions, and ways they overcome adversity, and how both men and women can help dismantle barriers that prevent advancement. I'm excited to feature our panel of strong female leaders. Now, first, let me start with currently serving her 3rd term as Albany, New York's 75th mayor. She has dedicated her administration to creating a city of opportunity, leading with a commitment to equity and responsive government that includes community voices. Welcome today's moderator and vice chair of the Women's Mayors Leadership Alliance, Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan. And joining Kathy on the panel today, she has more than 30 years of leadership experience in the nonprofit and corporate sectors and brings her innovative vision and a long history of purpose-driven work to her role at United Way Worldwide. Angela previously served as president and CEO of Easter Seals, general counsel and chief administration officer at the YMCA of the USA, and the U.S. Air Force Judge Advocate for the General Corps, for JAG. She was included in the 2022 Nonprofit Times Power and Influence Top 50 Leaders and Forbes 2021 list of women over 50 creating social change at scale. We are excited for her to hear today from United Way President and CEO Angela Williams, the first Black woman to hold this position. Come out, Angela. We're so grateful to have you here today. Our next panelist company provides government compliance information and consulting services to Fortune 500 companies, trade and professional associates, legal and accounting firms, and corporate lobbyists in all 50 states and 47 countries. Locally, she serves on the board for the Greater Akron Chamber of Commerce and the Public Policy Committee for the United Way of Summit County, and that wasn't on purpose. That was just a coincidence. In April, she was elected chair of the United Way campaign for Summit and Medina counties. Please welcome the president and CEO of State and Federal Communications Incorporated, Elizabeth Bartz. And joining the panel as well is an internationally renowned entrepreneur, a pioneer for online research, movement leader, mentor, and champion of gender equality. As founder and CEO of the Female Quotient, she is in the business of equality. Together with a growing global community of over 1 million conscious leaders, she is on a mission to change the equation and to close the gender gap. Joining today's panel, she is known as the chief troublemaker and is a trailblazer for women in the workplace. Please welcome Shelley Zales. And last but absolutely not least, one of our very own mayors who has spent her life in service to her community. First as a police officer, then as Tampa's first female chief of police, and finally as the city's 59th mayor. Under her leadership, the city of Tampa has received several awards and recognitions, including being recognized amongst the top areas for women-owned businesses growth in 2019. At the start of her administration, she established the Transforming Tampa's Tomorrow advisory teams to focus on the most pressing issues facing her city: transportation, development services, workforce development, affordable housing, and sustainability and resilience. Please join me in welcoming Tampa Mayor Jane Castor. And now, Mayor Sheehan, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, and it is wonderful to have this amazing panel here. I want to thank Mayor Woodards for her leadership and for those wonderful introductions. And I want to dive right in. I mean, we know that gender diversity is a priority issue. It's important. Oftentimes, leaders make efforts to build a more robust workforce and pipeline of upward mobility, but we know that there are still challenges for that pipeline to actually result in women in leadership positions. And so we want to sort of talk with you as people who have done this about what are some things that we need to address in our policies and our practices that will encourage the subtle unconscious gender bias that persists in today's society, as well as the outright blocks that there are there for women. And so we want to turn this policy into actually transformation and action, and we need to ensure that we take action to support women. So I want to, again, thank you for agreeing to participate in this panel. And I want to start off by asking each of you, you are all leaders in a diverse number of ways and have had multiple careers. And I'd love to hear, what compelled you to become a leader? And if you had to talk about the one or two sort of game changers, that moment that got you to where you are, what would that be? And we can start to my left.
Well, thank you, and good afternoon to each and every one of you. It's a pleasure to be here. I am a child of the civil rights movement. My dad was pastor of a Baptist church in South Carolina. He worked alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I remember reading a letter within the last year that my dad wrote to all of the pastors in that city that said, now is the time to be brave. And we need to work together to integrate our city. And my dad sent that to all of the denominational leaders within the city. And then as I thought about that, that's a message that he lived out, and my parents lived out, but it modeled for me the need for us as women in this day and age to be brave, to be courageous about taking stands, about being the first, but making sure that we're not the only. You know, as you heard, I served on active duty in the military, so we can kick the door down, but we've got to make sure that the door remains down so that we're able to bring others, women behind us, and then being really intentional and collaborative to make sure that we're building that pipeline, that we're bringing on even as leaders on our own staffs and in our own organizations, women, young women, mentoring, all of that. So it's not just about me as a leader, but it's about all of those whose shoulders I stand on and all of those that are behind me that are coming along in leadership positions.
I wrote notes because I know we're on a short time period and I could go like, so, you know, the three things I wrote down really were the desire to positively affect the growth of my business. It was a very small business 30 years ago, and now we have grown. I also have a lifelong desire to maintain a level of integrity, which I think is very important in everything I do in business and personally. And I think it's important that all women expand their vision, participate positively in the business and community networks and your family networks. This is something where we don't need you to be a bystander. Jump in.
Yep. Those are very succinct. Mine aren't so simple because I think my whole career just was not textbooky. So I think that's how I got the name Chief Troublemaker. I had to break all the rules that made no sense and create the new ones because I was an only and lonely my entire career. And I think it started, I'm 61, so I think it started when I was maybe 25. And I thought I was the perfect employee. I came in early, I stayed late, I said yes to everyone, I collaborated. And then one day, my first review, it was, I think, like 10 typed pages. We did not have computers at the time, so it was like those little tiny letters. And the first 3 lines were really nice. Like it said, I was nice and friendly and smart and all those, niceties. And then the rest ripped me to shreds. Like I said yes to clients too much. I had too many client lunches, and I pushed my team out of their comfort zone, and like all the things that I thought I was doing right, but I was supposed to be an order taker, and I was supposed to say yes to my boss that was a man and sign the review, but that didn't make sense to me. And I looked at my boss and I said to him, "You're just making the biggest mistake of your life." I said, because I think that I'm right and you're wrong. And so he put someone above me, which was a woman, and I decided that I needed to be in charge and I needed to be the boss of my life because the rules of the workplace were written by men for men. And I just thought very differently. And I had this idea, I was in market research, that I wanted to move research from offline to online in a day and age where only wealthier men with broadband connections were on the internet. And all my bosses were men. And so I went to them and I said, let's migrate research to the internet. And they all told me that I had to wait for the right time. And I didn't know when that right time was. And the next week I was sitting on a panel with the chief research officer of Procter & Gamble, one of the largest companies in the world. And I was whispering to him. And I come off the stage and my bosses all said to me, "Well, what were you talking to him about?" I said, "I just asked him, when is the right time to come to your company and talk about online research?" And they said, "Well, what did he say?" And I said, "He said next week." And they said, "Great. Paul will go, John will go, Ringo will go, and Star will go." And I said, "But what about Shelley?" And they said to me, "But it's really a boys' club, and that's the right team." And I said, "Great, I'll cancel the meeting, and you can all wait for the right time." And that's when I knew I needed to be a leader. And I made myself my own boss. and I wanted to write my own rules, and I was going to be in charge. And that was my heartbeat moment. And from that day on, I was my own boss.
Well, there you go. Yes. Outstanding. My path is clearly a bit different. I'll talk more so about my time in the police department than as mayor, but I spent 31 years in the Tampa Police Department, and I don't know if anybody's noticed, but law enforcement is a male-dominated profession. Just saying. But, and it's unusual because the further you rise in law enforcement, the less you get to do what you came there to do to help the community. Or as one of my sons put it at a Great American Teach-In, he said, my mom's not a real cop. She doesn't put bad guys in jail. She's just the chief. She sits behind a desk. So, yeah, a lot of great support from my kids there. But incredibly competitive. I was an athlete, went to college, got to meet Nancy Lieberman yesterday, went to college on an athletic scholarship, so always been a little too competitive. And so with the promotional tests, I always did well on those and rose through the ranks and worked in every aspect over those 31 years, every aspect of law enforcement, and got to meet a lot of great people, JAGs, a lot of U.S. attorney, you know, just great opportunities for me. But then rose to the position of chief of police. And law enforcement agencies are very flat. We have 1,000 officers in our department, and the staff is made up of 10. So your opportunity to rise to the top is very, very limited. And so I had the honor of being named the first female chief of police at the Tampa Police Department by a female mayor at the time, Pam Iorio, and I was in that position for 6 years. At the time that I was named the chief of police, I said that, you know, at the end of my tenure, I didn't want to be remembered as the first female. I wanted to be remembered as a good chief. But the significance of being a woman in that position was not lost on me. If a male failed in that position, they would say such and such couldn't do the job. If I failed, then they would say, I told you a woman couldn't do it. And so it was critically, critically important to me that I worked hard every day. I said, run faster, jump higher than any of my male counterparts, just so I could show that women certainly could do that job and were qualified. And also throughout the career, my career, to Angela's point too, was to ensure that I kept that door open and brought other women through. Just real quickly, as mayor, when I was elected mayor, I said that I searched for the best individual for each of the positions in city staff. And it didn't matter, you know, I just wanted the best in each of those positions. So there are 5 administrative positions in our city, 4 of those are women. And we had female fire chief, which you know how unusual that is, and she's a woman of color and a badass. And we had the first chief of police under my administration was a woman as well. And those, it wasn't intentional to put women in those positions, it was intentional to have the best person for that position.
That's awesome.
You know, and you've talked about the best person for that position, but sometimes the person evaluating that has a different definition of what those qualities and qualifications are, which I think is one of the reasons it's so important to have women in leadership positions. Could you give an example of, you know, as you were going up the ranks to become police chief, and for each of you, you know, an example of when either a woman or a man helped to open that door, helped to get you to that next step on the ladder?
Well, I can tell you from my position that, you know, having the majority of the individuals around me male, my mentors were men. And so I had just wonderful mentors at the Tampa Police Department. And I had one in particular, I would walk in, you know, with my soapbox and get on it and just, you know, give them hell about this is what I'm going to do. And you know, I've had it. This person needs to be demoted. And he would listen intently and he'd go, great idea. He said, I had a similar issue and came to the same conclusion as you did. And when I made that decision, I was on midnights that Sunday evening. And I'm like, ooh, well, what other direction would you suggest that I take? So I had a lot of really wonderful individuals. And also, you know, it's the perception of things too. Like, I have been the person around that table that you say, you know, how about we try this? And everybody's like, And then it goes around to a male, usually your superior, and they say the same exact thing. And everybody's like, oh my God, that's brilliant. You're like, hell, I just said that. And then I saw a commercial one day where a similar thing with a executive staff and an individual made a suggestion. Everybody just blew him off, and it got to the CEO, and he said the same thing, but he was doing this with his hand. And I'm like, all those years, I just had to do this, and people would have listened. But again, it's those mentors that can say, you know, it's not necessarily you. Don't take it personal. These are the circumstances and the situations. So they help you see things in a more objective manner. And I'm very, very thankful of all of the mentors that I've had throughout my life.
Shelley, and then we'll come back around. You know, ways that you've seen, you know, either women or men supporting other women and supporting them in their quest for leadership.
Well, first of all, I think language is so incredibly important, and I also love how you reinforced by name all of the people that have put you in wonderful places. And one of the things that you said that is so incredibly valuable is representation matters, and we hear that all the time, but representation only matters if it's not about reflection, but if it's about creating change.
Right.
And I think that is so incredibly important, and there's so many people that are in positions of power, but they don't use it. And when you are in positions of power, you are pulling other people up with you, and that is so incredibly important. So I want to reinforce that. Also, language matters. When we say, oh, we need male allies, I hate that. I mean, I hate that, because that just gives men more power. So I say leadership allies. Leadership allies. Use the word leadership allies. That just, you know, if you are in a position of power, I don't care if you're a man or a woman, it's not about gender, it's about leadership. Leadership allies. So let's start using new lexicon. Or the qualities of leadership. It's not about the masculine or the feminine. We talk about, like, when people say soft powers, because I think the greatest qualities of leadership today are compassion and empathy and collaboration and passion. People say those are the soft powers, the feminine powers. Soft powers feel weak. Those are the essential, critical powers of leadership today. I think critical, essential powers of leadership. Let's start changing that language. When I sold my company, I remember sitting at a public board. I had 250 employees. I sold my company to a company of 16,000 employees. Now I'm one of 2 women at a table of 23. And we're sitting around, and they're talking about my employees as if they were chess pieces, moving them here, here, here. And I said, that's not where my employees fit. These are people. These are humans that have capability, and they're badass people. And tears came down my eyes, and I was pulled aside after this meeting. And I said, you know, and they told me there's no room for emotion in the boardroom. I had 2 options. One, agree, which I was not going to do. The other was to give a speech, which is what I did to thousands of people. I'm a public speaker. And my speech was, bring emotion to the boardroom, exclamation point, boom. And that's what I did. And to start a new conversation. And that is exactly what I did. Language matters. And now I'm profiling CEOs. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. If you're a CEO, and in their profile, I am putting, we are looking for an empathetic, compassionate, bold, brave CEO that can deliver a great ROI, right? Like, that is what we have to start doing. Change the language, change the narrative. And that's how we'll start recruiting the best CEOs in the world today. So that's what I think we need to start doing.
There you go.
Great.
Resiliency, too, is a good word.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about resilience in a minute, but do you have an example or, you know, words of advice about how to effectively support other women and support women who are really want these leadership positions? You know, the 25-year-old who wants to run the company someday.
I want your job. That's cute, okay? But you want to help them. I encourage everybody to really demand a seat at the table, okay? And one of the things I wrote here is ignore you're the first woman at the table mentality. You're the best person that they've put on that, and you're going to spend your whole time convincing them of that. Not by telling them that, but I always support bringing in female colleagues to positively benefit the group. And again, I do see some men out there. It's just easier sometimes for you all. And I'm not being nasty about it, but we really do have to support our women. And you can start young. This year I bought more than 1,000 boxes of Girl Scout cookies. And I donated every one of them. I swear to God, I donated every box to a food kitchen that helps people. And, you know, it's just Girl Scout cookies, but they loved it. They get this little badge for it, and it was just important to them. And I bought them from people I never heard of before. And so I'm bringing women into the equation all the time, and it reflects a huge, if you don't have women at the table, it reflects a void of information that you're receiving. And we're not talking 20 years ago, we're talking it's going on still right now.
So Elizabeth, there's a phrase that you used about seat at the table, and I am at a point in my life where I don't want a seat at anybody else's table. I am very much intentional about creating my own table, and I'm sitting at it and I'm making it large enough for everyone, and so that it's not selective. There are so many systems that have been in place for so long that are not inclusive, that don't start from a foundation of equality or equity. And so that's the first thing that I'm doing. The second thing is that I'm really concerned about the next generation of leaders. And so in my role at United Way Worldwide, we decided to partner with the Institute for the Future. We're now creating a curriculum to train the next generation of leaders to be futurists. And what that is doing is tapping into younger generations now to be able to look into the future, to be creative and innovative, and then to think about what are the systems and products and processes that they should be creating now to be leading in the future. And that's how I want to be that leader that's opening up the door, the pathway for the women coming behind me and men coming behind me to have a different lens and a way of showing up in society. And then one thing I will say, I never thought about being president or CEO of an organization. I am very competitive too. So when I went into the military, it was all about being the first female JAG general. And then when I left there, went to the U.S. Attorney's Office, like, oh, I'm gonna be one of the top federal prosecutors. And then I left there and, you know, on and on and on, this is the story. But my CEO, the YMCA, said to me one day, Angela, you know you could be a CEO? And I was like, oh, I thought I would always be a lawyer. Okay, I'm gonna be a CEO one day. And then here I am in America's, well, one of the largest nonprofits in the world, actually. But what do I do with this? I now use this opportunity to use my voice, to use my ability to connect, to be authentic, to be real, to be accessible, so that the others that are following behind me can do what I'm doing and even more.
Well, we have about 8 minutes left, which means you each get 2 minutes to answer this question. But, you know, for all of the mayors out there, men, you know, men, women, all of us mayors, we have challenges with workforce. And we have young people who are joining our workforce. We have young men who expect to have just as much flexibility as we typically associate with women, you know, and moms and you know, all of that. So what advice would you give to these mayors who are CEOs of some things that we can do to make sure that we are providing that space for the leaders of the future in our organizations?
I would just say, again, it's about not only flexibility, but even just the basics between flexibility in work hours and locations, childcare, obviously, policies that are family friendly are extremely important for young women and girls. And now they're looking at what do I want out of life and allowing them to have that sense of purpose in serving, whether it's in municipal service or in other service, or even in the corporate sector. But I'll just go back to what I just said. As mayors, you all have such incredible opportunity to lead by example, to be accessible, to be those advocates, and to just make the way for the young women and the young girls that are coming along the side. And I can't help but pitch, please partner with your local United Way.
There you go.
I'm
We can
wearing the
assist you.
badges. I got my badges from United Way. I would say it's so important as a leader to take a proactive role. Mayors, you probably have very young people on your staff. You might have some very seasoned people. People talk about mentorship, getting an older person to help a younger person. I know at our office, it's our corporate culture that you are involved in community events, that you are involved in professional development. And I don't just say that. We put our money behind it. We give them examples of things that they can do. We have United Way Day of Action coming up. That's a big opportunity for them to go out and meet other people in the community. I'm always saying it's so that they can go and talk about how wonderful state and federal communications is and bring other people over. I never think anybody's going to steal my staff. It happens. But it's really important to give people the tools so they can have a more well-rounded career and know a little bit about what's going on in your community. We are very active with our United Way of Summit and Medina County, and I am the campaign chair this year, which was I should have asked for the job description, but because it's a lot of work. But we do a lot with United Way, and our United Way of Summit and Medina gives us the opportunity to be involved in our community, and that makes the staff stronger.
Shelley, words of wisdom for the mayors out there?
Well, I think it's listening to hear. And I think that, we think we know what people want, but I think just spend time with people. And, when I was invited to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, my invitation for the Equality Lounge, I do these pop-ups all over the world, was we want you to come, but you might not feel like you belong. And I mean, your head says don't go, your heart says you have to. And so I went and I created a sign that was the place for the 17%, because only 17% of women are at the World Economic Forum with badges. Badges are very exclusive, so I created an unbadged space. And an unbadged space is my guest list, which was everyone. And it was a place that everyone was welcome and everyone felt like they could belong. And it just goes back to United Way. And it's, a place where everyone feels that they are heard, are seen, are welcome. And that's a place of kindness, respect. And that's what people want in the workplace. They want to feel respected by one another. And I think that's what we need to do, and that's what I wish for all of us, and to be kind to one another. And I think that's what it's all about. When we say unconscious bias, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. If you say the word unconscious, you're conscious.
Yes.
And once you're conscious, you have a choice. Do something or don't. It's about intentionality. The World Economic Forum says it's going to take another 132 years to close the gender gap. Why? It's choice. We all have choices. So let's make them, and let's make the right choices to be kind to one another and do the right thing.
Very well said. I would say to all the mayors out here, just be aware of the position that you're in and the ability that you have to lift up others. whether it be in the corporate space or the personal space. None of us got to the position that we're at without some type of struggle or learning from the mistakes. We most often learn more from the mistakes that you make than you do from the successes, and they're certainly more impactful. So helping others, whether it be men or women, helping them avoid some of the pitfalls that you encountered as they navigate their way through life. Times change, but the tenets of good leadership remain the same. Someone told me, and I don't know who I should credit this to, but they said one time that your values should stay as steady as the rocks in a stream, but you should be able to change with the times as the water navigates around those rocks. So that's something that is a simple way for me to look at life, but to ensure that we're helping others and lifting them up. And it's something as simple as connecting. That's one of my favorite actions as a mayor, is to be able to connect different individuals, and specifically young people that are just starting out. If they're trying to grow a business or start a business, to connect them with someone who can open that door, or to connect someone with their passion, whatever it is, to bring people together, I think is one of the greatest benefits of being in the position that I'm in. And then also, we have to be honest with women. We don't like to say no to things. We say yes a little too often. So taking care of ourselves, I know that the whole life-work balance thing is way overrated, but making sure that you are taking time to take care of yourself. The men may roll their eyes in this, but having so many women, the majority of our senior staff, directors and above in the city are women. And so many women have said, in the past, I had to say when I had that coveted hair appointment, I used to have to say it was a doctor's appointment I was going to. And I'm like, no, girl, say it's a hair appointment. We all know how important that is. But, it is bringing those different perspectives to the table. And that is so critically important. It's important that in the corporate world, but more so in our world as government, is that our staffs reflect the community that we serve. And the diversity around the table, we are all a sum total of our life experiences, and you need to be bringing those diverse experiences around the table when decisions are made that affect the community. So, I think that my advice would be never, ever underestimate your ability in the position you're in to positively impact others' lives.
And just to close that out and to talk about the pay equity and the gender equity, use your position. If you haven't done a pay study, do a pay study. All of your women are underpaid. And we found that out. We knew it, even though we had worked on it, but we wanted to lead by example. And it has changed some of the lives of some of the women in our organization who were not being paid, and we forced managers to really answer the tough questions. This person supervises 3 people. Why are they a grade 12? And this person supervises 10 people, and they're a grade 9. And we went through the exercise, and it really gave our employees a model that showed that we cared and that we weren't just paying lip service. We were writing the check.
I'll give you an amen on that, Kathy. We did it as well when I first came in office in 2019. It was amazing, the disparity in men and women's pay.
Yep.
Not at state and federal communications.
Well, thank you so much for being on our panel. We are out of time, but you guys are amazing, and we are so grateful that you came to join us, and we really appreciate you broadening our perspective and giving us some great ideas that we can take back to our communities.
You're amazing too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. What a great panel. Wasn't that good? Women mayors, don't leave yet. We got to take pictures. All right. What a fantastic panel of women, and what insight they gave to all of us. I am certainly grateful the fact that we got that many dynamic women on the same stage today to share with all of you. It is now my honor to ask our nominating committee chair, Charlotte Mayer Vialiles, to give the nominating committee report.
Wasn't that panel outstanding? I mean, it was just such a great thing. You just never know when you're going to get a gift, but I think we had one this afternoon. So thank you, Victoria, Mayor Woodard. I am Vi Lyles, and I'm mayor of Charlotte, North Carolina. And Mayor Woodard asked me to chair the Women Mayors Nominating Committee. Serving with me on that committee was Tucson Mayor Regina Romero and Grand Rapids Mayor Rosalind Bliss. The nominating committee met to discuss the candidates for chair and vice chair of the Alliance. The nominating committee recommends Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan, my friend, my partner in all of our partnerships together to be great mayors, for the position of chair, and the wonderful Fontana Mayor Aquanetta Warren as vice chair of the Alliance. So I have to make a motion. So I move the nomination of Mayor Kathy Sheehan for the position of chair of the Women of Mayors Leadership Alliance for the Conference of Mayors. Is there a second? A second, everybody, come on, second. All right, now, all in favor, please say aye. Aye, thank you. No, I'm going to have to say this because it's in Roberts or something like that. Is there anybody that's a nay on this? Thank you very much. Now, I move the nomination of Fontana Mayor Aquanetta Warren for the position of Vice Chair of the Women's Mayor Leadership Alliance of the Conference of Mayors. Is there a second? Yeah. Any questions? All in favor, please say aye. Nobody's opposed to that. I want to congratulate both of these wonderful mayors on their newly elected leadership roles in this organization. We look forward to the work that you're going to do and the gifts that you will give us. Have a great evening, everyone. Mayor Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor Lyles, for agreeing to chair the nominating committee. And congratulations to our new officers, Alliance Chair Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan and Vice Chair Fontana Mayor Aquanetta Warren. I am so excited to have the two of them leading this organization. Let's give them both another round of applause. Well, let me say it has been my honor to serve as chair of the USCM Women's Mayors Leadership Alliance for the past 2 years. I want to take this moment to thank all of you for your support and your involvement during my tenure as chair of the Women's Mayors Leadership Alliance. I look forward to continuing to work with all of you to build on our progress that we have made thus far. I am so proud that at every U.S. Conference of Mayors conference, that we make sure that there is a session dedicated and led by women to talk about issues that are important to us. And for the men who joined us today, which I see some of you out there, thank you so much for being here. We won't be able to get all of the work done to get true parity for women if we don't have your support. So I want to thank all of you for being here and supporting us. Again, it has been my honor to serve. I look forward to continuing to be a part of this organization and to work with all of you. Now, final act before the meeting is, I knew that was Satya. I knew that was Satya Rhodes Conway out there. Thank you very much. And thank you to all of you. I can't tell you what an honor it has been to be in this position. So we've got one more thing to do before the meeting's actually adjourned, and we've got to take that group picture. So will all of the lady mayors come over to this side on my left, your right-hand side of the stage, and we'll take our picture together. And after that, we will be adjourned. Oh, and can you turn the lights up on the stage for the picture? Oh, look, and I think I'm going to run around.